The investigation into former President Trump's handling of classified documents. Sources telling ABC News that a federal judge has ruled Trump's attorney must give more testimony to a grand jury. ABC's Jay O'Brien is in Washington with the latest. Jay, good morning to you.
Whit, good morning to you. All of these proceedings are secret. They're kept away from public view because they're part of an ongoing federal grand jury investigation. But sources telling ABC News that Evan Corcoran, who's an attorney for former President Trump, has been ordered by a federal judge to give additional testimony to that grand jury, which is investigating classified documents seized by the FBI at Trump's Mar-a-Lago estate. Sources familiar with the matter say that special counsel Jack Smith wants to question Corcoran about the former president's potential efforts to obstruct federal officials from getting those classified documents back.
Hi, everyone. Adam is here, okay? So what just happened? Because nothing like this has ever occurred in the 250 years of this republic. Donald Trump's lead attorneys, the men he trusted to defend him against federal prosecution, stood up in front of a federal judge, raised their right hands, swore to tell the truth, and then confessed to committing federal felonies.
And breaking overnight, CNN got word that a key attorney to Donald Trump turned critical witness has left his legal team. Evan Corcoran was hired to help Trump in the classified documents case, but he became a central part of the very indictment because of the meticulous notes and memos he took about his interactions with Trump. The indictment referred to Corcoran as Trump Attorney 1 at least 20 times, and it was from Corcoran's notes and memos that we learned that Trump allegedly misled him about the whereabouts of the classified documents, encouraged him to lie to the Justice Department and withhold these documents allegedly. If the case ever goes to trial, prosecutors could potentially call Corcoran as a key witness. And this morning, we know he is out of the fold, and as Maggie Haberman told us overnight, that is disquieting to Donald Trump.
They admitted under oath that they fabricated official government seals. They admitted they slapped those fake seals on Epstein files to evade subpoenas. They admitted they did it because Donald Trump ordered them to. And then, before they could even finish speaking, the judge looked at them and said something that no judge has ever had to say in a case involving a sitting president.
At a really important moment in the January 6th investigation, where the Justice Department was pursuing testimony from people as important as Mike Pence. That was Evan Corcoran, the man fighting those battles on the front line as the investigation bore down before Donald Trump was charged. After that, he became the person that the Justice Department compelled to testify. They forced him to come into the grand jury and reveal information, making him a cornerstone witness of this indictment in Florida against Donald Trump. So he had continued on representing Trump in the January 6th probe, but really was the person who witnessed something as significant as when Donald Trump was talking to him about the classified records found and apparently making reference to not wanting those classified records to be turned over. So
Counsel just admitted to federal felonies. Remove them immediately. Federal marshals moved in, handcuffs came out, and Todd, Blanche, and Boris Epstein, the men who were supposed to be defending the President of the United States, were physically dragged out of the courtroom while Trump screamed "traitors" at them from the defense table. This is not a movie. This is not a legal drama. This is what the final collapse of a presidency looks like when there is no one left to lie for you. Let me take you inside that courtroom because the details of what happened are even more devastating than the headlines suggest. The hearing was supposed to be a routine, consolidated proceeding addressing multiple legal issues. Trump's fraud case, the bank record releases, the impeachment evidence. All of it was being discussed in one room, and Trump's lawyers were there to mount a defense. But Judge Beryl Howell had been digging into something else, something that had been bothering her for months. The Epstein files that Trump had been fighting to keep secret. Every time investigators subpoenaed those documents, Trump's lawyers claimed they couldn't be released because they were sealed by government authority. There were official-looking seals on them. They looked legitimate. They looked like they had been properly classified by someone with the authority to classify them. But Judge Howell had started to suspect the seals were not real. She started pressing Blanche and Epstein about where the seals came from. Who authorized them? What was the legal basis for sealing these documents? And under oath, With the penalty of perjury hanging over their heads, Trump's lawyers cracked. They admitted the seals were fabricated. They admitted they created them specifically to evade subpoenas. They admitted they knew it was illegal when they did it. And then they dropped the detail that turned this from a legal disaster into a political nuclear explosion. They said Trump ordered them to do it. Trump told them to do whatever it took to keep the Epstein files from becoming public. And they followed those orders even though they knew they were breaking the law. The courtroom went silent. Reporters who had been scribbling notes stopped writing. Cameras that had been capturing routine legal proceedings suddenly captured history. Trump sat at the defense table, and for a moment, he didn't move. He didn't scream. He didn't rant. He just sat there, frozen, watching his lawyers confess to crimes he had ordered them to commit. And then Judge Howell spoke. Her voice was calm, measured, but there was steel underneath it. She said the lawyers had just admitted to federal felonies. She said they had fabricated evidence in her courtroom. She said they had obstructed justice, and she said they would be removed immediately. The marshals moved. Blanche and Epstein stood up, maybe thinking they could walk out on their own, but the marshals weren't giving them that option. Handcuffs clicked onto their wrists. They were turned around and led toward the door, and that's when Trump lost it. He stood up from the defense table, his face red, his veins bulging, and started screaming, "Traitors! Traitors! You're traitors!" He was pointing at Blanche and Epstein as they were being led away. He was yelling so loud that the marshals paused for a second, looking back to see if they needed to restrain him too. The courtroom erupted. Reporters were on their feet. Security was moving toward the defense table. Trump was still screaming as his lawyers disappeared through the doors, still calling them traitors, still refusing to accept that the men he had chosen to defend him had just chosen to save themselves instead. Here is why this moment matters more than anything that has happened in this entire crisis. Trump has spent his entire life using lawyers as shields. He hires people who are willing to bend the rules, to push the boundaries, to do things that other lawyers won't do. He has always believed that his money, his power, his connections would protect him from consequences, that the people he hired would take the fall if things went wrong. But in that courtroom, Judge Howell made it clear that the shields were gone. Blanche and Epstein weren't going to take the fall. They were going to tell the truth, and the truth was that Trump had ordered them to commit crimes. The fake seals themselves are a window into how Trump's operation has always worked. When investigators started subpoenaing documents related to Trump's Epstein connections, Trump knew he was in trouble. The flight logs showed he had flown on Epstein's plane 7 times. The financial records showed connections that he had spent years denying. The communications showed a relationship that went far deeper than the casual acquaintance he had always claimed. So Trump did what he has always done when the truth is about to come out. He tried to bury it. He ordered his lawyers to make the documents look like they couldn't be released. He told them to create official-looking seals, to claim the documents were classified, to do whatever it took to keep the files from becoming public. And Blanche and Epstein did it. They fabricated the seals. They claimed government authority they didn't have. They lied to investigators. They obstructed justice. And for a while, it worked. The documents stayed hidden. The subpoenas were evaded. The truth stayed buried. But Judge Howell is not the kind of judge who stops asking questions when something doesn't look right. She started examining the seals. She started looking at the documents. She started comparing them to actual government seals. And she realized they were fake. She started pressing Trump's lawyers about where the seals came from, and under oath, with the penalty of perjury hanging over them, they confessed. They admitted they did it. They admitted Trump ordered it. And Judge Howell made them pay for it immediately. No delay, no courtesy, no letting them walk out of the courtroom to turn themselves in later. She had them arrested on the spot. The legal implications for Trump are catastrophic. He now has no lawyers. Blanche and Epstein are in federal custody. His other attorneys have either quit or distanced themselves from him. Who is going to represent him now? What competent lawyer is going to take a case where the previous lawyers were just arrested for following the client's orders? Trump is going to end up with bottom-tier representation, or he's going to try to represent himself, which would be a disaster. Either way, his legal defense is destroyed. But the legal implications go far beyond just losing his lawyers. Blanche and Epstein's testimony is now part of the permanent record. They testified under oath that Trump ordered them to fabricate evidence and obstruct justice. That testimony can be used in every case against him: the fraud case, the tax evasion case, the money laundering case, the impeachment trial, all of it. Prosecutors are going to put Blanche and Epstein on the witness stand, and they are going to repeat what they said in that courtroom. They are going to look at the jury and say, "The president told us to break the law, so we broke the law," and juries are going to believe them. Because why would Trump's own lawyers confess to crimes if it wasn't true? They have every incentive to protect Trump if they could. They only confessed because the evidence against them was overwhelming, and they knew that lying under oath would only make it worse. The timing of this confession could not be worse for Trump. The House is voting on articles of impeachment tomorrow. Democrats have been building a case based on obstruction of justice, abuse of power, and other crimes. And now they have Trump's own lawyers confessing that he ordered them to obstruct justice. That is not circumstantial evidence. That is not a whistleblower account. That is the president's own legal team under oath saying the president is guilty. The impeachment articles are going to pass the House easily, probably with some Republican votes, because there are Republicans who have been looking for an excuse to abandon Trump, and this is the excuse. When the president's own lawyers say he ordered them to commit crimes, you don't have to worry about primary challenges anymore. You can vote to impeach and explain to your constituents that you were just following the evidence. Then it goes to the Senate, and the Senate is going to convict. The math has been shifting for weeks. More and more Republican senators have been signaling that they are ready to vote to remove Trump from office. The war crimes were bad enough. The bank records were bad enough. The Epstein connections were bad enough, but Trump's own lawyers confessing that he ordered them to commit obstruction, that is the breaking point. Republican senators are going to look at that testimony, look at the video of Blanche and Epstein being dragged out in handcuffs, and realize they cannot defend this. They cannot explain this to voters. They cannot run for re-election with that image attached to their names. So they are going to vote to convict, and Trump is going to be removed from office. The political implications for the Republican Party are apocalyptic. The image of Trump's lawyers being arrested in court is going to define the 2026 midterms. Democrats are going to run ads showing the handcuffs, showing Trump screaming "traitors," showing the transcripts of his lawyers confessing. They are going to ask voters, is this who you want leading the country? Is this what the Republican Party stands for? And voters are going to say no. Republicans are going to lose the House, lose the Senate, lose governorships, lose state legislatures. The party is going to be decimated, and it is going to take a generation to recover. Because voters do not forget this kind of corruption. They do not forget a party that enabled a criminal president until his own lawyers were dragged out of court in handcuffs. And then there is the criminal prosecution. Once Trump is removed from office, he loses presidential immunity, and prosecutors are ready. They have been building cases for years. They have the bank records, they have the tax returns, they have the flight logs, and now they have the testimony of Trump's own lawyers confessing that he ordered them to commit crimes. Trump is going to be charged with obstruction of justice. He is going to be charged with conspiracy. He is going to be charged with fraud, tax evasion, money laundering. He is facing dozens of charges across multiple jurisdictions, and he is going to be convicted. Because the evidence is overwhelming, and his own lawyers are going to testify against him. Blanche and Epstein are going to get deals from prosecutors. They are going to plead guilty to lesser charges in exchange for their cooperation. They are going to serve some prison time, maybe a few years, but they are going to get out eventually. Their careers are over. They will be disbarred. They will never practice law again. But they are going to save themselves from the worst consequences by telling prosecutors everything they know about Trump's crimes. And what they know is everything. They were his lawyers. They were in the room. They saw the documents. They heard the orders. They know where the bodies are buried. And they are going to tell it all to the prosecutors who are building the case that will put Donald Trump in prison for the rest of his life. Trump's reaction in the courtroom, screaming "traitors" at his own lawyers, is the perfect encapsulation of who he is. When people tell the truth about him, he attacks them. He calls them rats. He calls them traitors. He claims they are betraying him. But Blanche and Epstein are not betraying him. They are saving themselves. They are facing the reality that the man they worked for is a criminal, and they are choosing to tell the truth rather than go to prison for him. Trump would never do the same for anyone else. He would never sacrifice himself to protect someone who worked for him. He expects total loyalty while giving none in return. And when the people who gave him that loyalty finally realize they have been used, when they finally decide to protect themselves instead of him, he screams at them. He calls them traitors. He tries to make them the villains for telling the truth. But the truth is not betrayal. The truth is the truth. And the truth is that Donald Trump ordered his lawyers to commit crimes. And now those lawyers have confessed. And now Donald Trump is going to face the consequences. What happens next is going to unfold quickly. The House impeachment vote is tomorrow. It will pass. The Senate trial will begin immediately. It will end with conviction. Trump will be removed from office. Then the criminal indictments will come. Federal prosecutors in New York, in Washington, in Florida, they are all ready. They have been waiting for this moment. They have been building their cases for years, and now they have everything they need. Trump's own lawyers are going to testify against him. His bank records are public. His tax returns are public. His Epstein connections are public. There is nothing left to hide. There is no defense left to make. The case is closed. Trump is guilty. He is going to be arrested. He is going to be held without bail because he has access to private planes and foreign connections and every reason to flee. He is going to sit in a federal detention center awaiting trial. And when the trials happen, he is going to be convicted. Multiple convictions. Multiple life sentences. He is going to spend the rest of his life in federal prison. His properties will be seized to pay his debts. Trump Tower will have someone else's name on it. Mar-a-Lago will be sold to someone who is not a criminal. Everything he built, everything he claimed to be, everything he spent his life pretending to be, will be gone. And he will be in a prison cell, alone, with nothing but the truth that he spent his whole life running from. The Republican Party is going to try to distance itself from him. They are going to say they never really supported him. They are going to say they were just going along because he was the nominee. But the record is clear. They enabled him. They protected him. They attacked his accusers. They voted against impeachment. They stood by him until the very end, until his own lawyers were dragged out of court in handcuffs. And voters are going to remember that. They are going to remember that Republicans defended a criminal president until the evidence was so overwhelming that even his own lawyers couldn't deny it. And they are going to punish Republicans for it, for years, for generations. This is the end of Trump's presidency, the end of his political career, the end of his freedom, the end of everything he built on a foundation of lies and crimes. It ends not with a rally, not with a speech, not with a dramatic resignation. It ends with his lawyers in handcuffs, with Trump screaming traitors at them, with a federal judge doing what federal judges do when criminals appear in their courtrooms. It ends with the truth finally catching up to a man who spent his entire life running from it. And the truth was worse than anyone imagined.